Well, if you are following along, you noticed that there was a lot to read today, or this week. And it is part 5, and it's broken into 2 parts, and it's titled Teachings from the New Testament. The first part is from the teaching of Jesus, and it's very lengthy, and so we were going to do the whole thing all in one, but one of us, I won't say which one, got really entangled in too many ideas. And the other one, willingly and graciously, I bet you can guess which one, said, I can condense mine into one idea, and so however you want to play it out, we can. So, until we feel we have completed these teachings of Jesus, you are going to hear these Bible stories in a sense, but the words of Jesus played out in Science of Mind teaching. So we don't really know if it will, we do know it's going to be at least 2 weeks and probably 3, maybe a lot more. And we are choosing from this section the parts that speak to us in that moment. So let us begin.
So this topic is from the teachings of Jesus. And I want to make a disclaimer right here. In Science of Mind, we don't necessarily deify Jesus. We don't believe that Jesus is God necessarily any more than any of the rest of us are, because God is all that is, and if God is all that is and I am, then God is all I am. So therefore, I am of God in the same way that Jesus was. But Jesus recognized that essence of him more so than probably anybody else through time. And so we quite often honor what he did and so on. But we don't necessarily, in the Science of Mind, deify him any more than anyone else. And so I want to make sure we all kind of are on the same page on that. And maybe you do, it doesn't really matter, because once again, we're open to any possibilities, and everybody's perfectly encouraged to believe what they believe. So we see Jesus more as a human who demonstrated the Christ nature. The things Jesus did were an application of his teachings, of what he said. And the things Jesus did were quite miraculous in some respects, but he kept saying that everything I have done you can do as well. And so we need to keep that in mind in our teaching. While traditional Christian doctrine teachings focus on the seemingly miraculous things that Jesus did, we follow more the things that Jesus said, the teachings. Believing his mission on earth was to relay a message that would change the world by changing our worldview, by changing how we look at life, and then changing how we see ourselves in this thing called life and in our religious life. And so we're changing our view of life and our worldview of how God interacts with us and so on. The things he did are quite inspirational. The things he said and taught are directly applicable to our everyday lives. So I believe that's really important, to look at his teachings, the things he said, and the way he lived his life, rather than the miraculous things he did. Now, in traditional fundamental Christian interpretations of Christian scriptures, and I talked about this, I think, last week, there are unquestionable lines between that which is divine and that which is human, and that which is holy and that which is material. And according to this tradition, Jesus, as they define the Christ, must fall in the realm of divinity, and would therefore have no relevance in the human experience, because he was a divine being, not a human being. If he could do things above and beyond human capacity, there is no point of an example. He would have to be an exception. It would be futile for us to attempt to apply in our human life the things that Jesus taught. In his view, he is an exception to the rule. In this view, he is an exception to the rule of human nature. In Science of Mind, we take that science part seriously, and we believe that everything that we believe and everything that we apply to our lives must be reproducible. And if Jesus' teachings were said, if Jesus was teaching us to do these things which he was doing, they must be reproducible in our lives, otherwise they have no relevance to us whatsoever. And so I don't see the point of going over the miracles that Jesus did that we can't do. What's the point for us? How does it make us better? It makes us more distant than connected to that. And the point of religion is to tie together, not to separate apart. The miracle teachings are contrary to the teachings of Jesus. All his teachings were encouraging those who followed him to follow his example and thereby achieve the seemingly miraculous conditions that he did. He always said, everything I can do, you can do. No, I'm not a biblical scholar or authority on the life and teachings of Jesus. I have been in Christian teachings most of my life, and so I have a pretty good idea of it, but I don't even think I'm even as much a scholar as the guy who bumps into me at the parking lot at Walmart and tries to tell me about his faith. They can quote scripture a lot easier than I can. So I'm not really a scholar on that. So I don't necessarily believe that I have any right to tell the Christian church how they should portray Jesus' teachings. But I do believe his message and purpose in life is lost, or at best kind of diluted, in the glorification of miracles over the application of his teachings. So I believe that's kind of what Science of Mind is trying to do. When we talk about Jesus, we're trying to find out where are the commonalities of what he said and what we can apply to our lives to make our lives better, more meaningful, and more spiritual, and more whole. Now, Einstein said there are only two ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle, and the other is though everything is a miracle. And so we have to look at life as though everything is miraculous and we can achieve the miraculous. Or we have to assume that nothing is a miracle and we can't do anything. I think that's what Einstein was trying to say. We are more focused on reproducible application of the teachings than unachievable miracles. We believe the teachings of Jesus applied to everyday life can enable us to achieve miraculous results. Now, I don't know about you, but I have seem to have found that to be true in my life. When I follow those teachings and do what Jesus said and follow his example, it really works in my life. And so I follow those teachings. Jesus was more of a teacher of spiritual philosophy than a miracle worker, actually. He was teaching about natural law, and his life showed the result of natural law in action. And I believe that's why he said, I have come to fulfill the law. He has come to make the law applicable to us. So it's not just some theory or an idea that we could aspire to, but it's something that we can actually attain and do. Here's one of his sayings: your faith has made you whole. It's based on, well, several times actually in the Bible where he said that, but one specific one, the one Ernest Holmes uses in the book, he says, this is from the Bible, and behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came before him and came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may but touch this garment, I shall be whole. But Jesus turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, daughter, be of good comfort, thy faith has made thee whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour. She was immediately healed from touching the garment? No. She was healed because she had faith. She believed that she could be healed. And her faith was so strong that she took the action that she believed would make that happen, and she was healed. This same thing happened many times in the Bible with lepers, blind men, lame men, and so on. And Jesus never ever claimed responsibility for the healings. He always said, your faith has made you whole. Your faith has healed you in every instant. He was demonstrating the power of faith applied to human individuals, making a point that all of us, all people, have access to natural law, to universal energy, and we can all use it. We don't have to do it through someone else. We can hold that energy within ourselves. Just hold the faith, believe it, and to the extent that we believe it, it manifests in our lives. There's also the story of the centurion. The centurion, by the way, is commander in the Roman army, and they're very powerful people. A centurion, this is from the Bible, from Luke. A centurion servant, a centurion, too many C's and S's in there. A centurion's servant whom his master highly valued, was sick and about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him, "This man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue." So Jesus went to them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I do not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say your word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and I tell that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turned to the crowd following him. He said, "I tell you, I have not found such a great faith, even in Israel." Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. He was healed. Why was he healed? Was he healed because Jesus sent out his word to him? Well, if he was, that's following science of mind principle. In that case, Jesus is demonstrating the concept of non-local energy. He doesn't have to be there to touch the person to heal them. He doesn't even have to be in the vicinity of that person. He just has to hold his word and reach his word in universal action, and that man was healed. But that's not what happened. Nowhere does it say in this account that Jesus accomplished a miracle. It doesn't say that. He didn't even have to use his word. The application was a result of the centurion's faith. That's what made the difference. The centurion had such great faith that his servant could be healed, that he actually went through the action and the process of doing what he believed needed to happen to make that happen, and his servant was healed. Also, when Jesus prayed, he made a command, not an inquiry. He didn't ask God to do things. He didn't get on his knees and beg and plead. He made a command of the powers of the universe to act upon his request. He expected to receive and stated a desire with confidence, expecting the outcome, knowing that he would receive even before he asked the question. The centurion showed the same confidence that Jesus had. The centurion followed the example of what Jesus was teaching, and the result was a healing. So we could kind of say Jesus was a science of mind kind of guy, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. If you want an answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to follow up on that. I am going to say that Jesus taught us to obey God. Now, those words may or may not resonate with you, but look at what God is. Jesus taught us to obey God because God is natural law, the natural law that David talked about, that each one of us can use. Jesus' teachings were about following laws, following what we call often, instead of law, principles of life. So, what got me confused a little bit with how to talk just about the idea of the teaching of Jesus was that I was noticing as I was reading all the different sections that Ernest Holmes had written that he keeps coming back to the law of cause and effect. And so I said to David, do you think that faith is cause and effect? Does that fit under that law? And we talked about it because you think of faith as just a mindset, but indeed it is the law of cause and effect. For us to have faith means that we are not first cause, but cause. Our mindset is cause to create our desire in life. And Ernest Holmes says, the law of cause and effect is the law of perfect balance, logical sequence, and of inevitable consequence. Whatever a man or a woman sows, he or she must reap. So faith righteous faith is going to take action in our lives. Perfect balance to me means that here I am, and if I make that choice, it is in balance and alignment with that result. But as I'm here, I could make any one of these other choices, and they would have a different result. Each one would be in balance with the original cause, or not the original cause, but the cause of the mindset. So I looked at the idea of judgment for what Jesus talks about. And in Matthew 7, Jesus said, "Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again." And I believe that Sarah did a really good job this morning of discussing that, how she has these human experiences of life, these human opinions, these human thoughts that are natural, but she doesn't want to reap that end result of that kind of thinking, so she treats and moves her feet. She judges not, is what I was hearing her say. And in Science of Mind, we have this wonderful saying that whatever one is looking at, one is looking with. So whatever I am, whatever I hold in my mind, that is what I'm going to see in the world. It gives us a great, great opportunity to fall into what Mark talked about today, which was accountability. When I look at something, what do I see? Do I see the good or do I see the bad? Because I'm the thinker that thinks the thought. So looking at the idea of judgment, laws are immutable, unchanging. Each time we take action, whether it's action in form or action within our own mind, we are personally producing the effect in our own life. We set in motion the outcome to our action or thought of mind. And another saying we have is, what we hold in mind takes after its kind. Another one I really love. I love this teaching. I don't know if they're all from Ernest Holmes or if people just translate them for themselves in the way that speaks to them in the moment. But they're really catchy, and I've started noticing them on a lot of the signs along the wall, along the roads. So I know other people like them too. So what we hold in mind takes after its kind means that, therefore, we experience or we reap as we have sown. We must obey the law. And remember that song, I Fought the Law, and who won?
The law won.
The law won. So when we're standing in that place and we're looking at the choice that we're making, we want to be in perfect balance with the logical sequence of events that inevitably give us the consequence that we desire. The idea of the law is present even when we think the thought about someone or something else. And Sarah addressed this a little bit today too. Have you ever noticed, I'm going to go the opposite direction, a situation in your life where you had a friend who was in need? They were having some kind of a challenge or a struggle, and so you entered into prayer for them. And of course, when you entered into prayer for them, well, I would certainly hope you were not picturing them in their sadness and their sorrow, in their challenge, but rather you were picturing them in your own mind as being peaceful, happy, abundant, whatever it is that's going into what you desire. You are pulling to mind every happy idea you can think for them. You are imagining, you're using your imagination. And when you're doing that, have you ever stopped to notice that suddenly in your own life, you're filled with joy? Your mind is focused, it's clear, you have great clarity, and you're feeling peaceful and happy. Anyone else ever noticed that? I hope so. I hope you do notice that sort of thing, because the more we notice it, as David said, provable and reproducible, the more we notice it, the more we can create it more in our own life. We draw a correlation to the idea that as we sow, so shall we reap. And it occurs in the opposite manner also. At times we venture into unfriendly territory within our own mind. And sometimes it's even in the subconscious mind, where we have to go down in and dig up those roots, where in our ignorance we forget our truest nature. We've taken on ideas and then we ruminate over these negative ideas in our life. And as we sow, so shall we reap. And so what we're doing is setting the law into motion each and every time for what we desire to experience. A happy outlook on life is not a Pollyanna attitude. Rather, it is a magnet attracting to itself a constructive way of experiencing your life. So be happy. Be absolutely as happy as you possibly can. Fill your heart with gladness, the Bible says. Maketh your cup runneth over with joy. Revel in the love and wisdom of the divine nature that surrounds you. It is above you, below you, around you, and within you, always. Place yourself in situations where you are able to experience being the self-givingness of life, of God, of law. Be helpful, generous, kind, caring, empathetic, without becoming mired in whatever is someone else's journey. Become tuned in to your natural self, your natural beingness. Allow God, as the divine master of the law of cause and effect, to reign in others' lives and others' effects. Don't involve yourself in the outcome another deserves. God's got it. Judge not. Ernest Holmes said there is a direct law corresponding to condemnation and a direct law responding to praise and appreciation. And then he says that, of course, it is the same law, but it's used in very different ways. And each one of us is responsible for the outcome of our own experience in life. Be the attractor of good.